On February 9, 2023, Yellow reported $1.169 billion of net property and equipment, a book value, not an appraisal. 10 months later, a bankruptcy court approved roughly $1.9 billion in real estate sales. Yet Yellow had already collapsed. Its consolidation plan covered a network of 308 facilities. Article 8 of its union contract required a joint employer-union committee to approve covered terminal changes. In 2023, that process met a liquidity crisis and collapsing customer confidence. Yellow owned 166 terminals. Covered changes in its overhaul needed joint approval. The words come from the National Master Freight Agreement, the collective bargaining agreement governing Yellow's operating companies, and Teamster-represented employees, and Yellow filed it with regulators itself back in 2008. Article 8, Section 6. A. Present terminals, breaking points, or domiciles shall not be transferred, changed, or modified without the approval of an appropriate change of operations committee. Yellow kept the right to run its own property, but a covered change to a terminal could not take effect until that joint committee approved it. Why would any company agree to that? Because in less than truckload trucking, the terminal network is the job map. Close a terminal, and you don't just move a building, you move, or end, hundreds of careers. The provision protected seniority and other contractual rights when terminal changes moved or eliminated work. The same provision also limited management's unilateral flexibility during a later restructuring. Here is how that approval actually worked. Under Article 8, Yellow could not implement covered terminal changes until a change of operations committee approved the proposal. The committee was evenly divided between employer and union representatives, had authority to determine the seniority of affected employees, and addressed other issues consistently with the agreement. Article 8 made its seniority determination final and binding. Management could propose a restructuring, but it could not implement the covered changes unilaterally. So why did Yellow end up with too many terminals? 2 acquisitions. In 2003, Yellow bought Roadway for about $1 billion. 2 years later, it bought USF Corporation. Yellow and Roadway legally merged in 2008 and combined their networks in 2009, eliminating substantial duplication. But the USF regional carriers remained separate, and by 2022, Yellow still described 4 disparate linehaul networks. By the end of 2022, that sprawl had a number: 308 service facilities, 166 that Yellow owned, 142 it leased, roughly 19,000 loading doors, 12,700 tractors, 42,000 trailers, 4 disparate linehaul networks with overlapping local pickup and delivery coverage. One Yellow was the plan to consolidate them. Now jump to the final week. The story everyone remembers is a strike. It never happened. The strike was called off, and Yellow shut down 7 days later. Here's why. In July, YRC Freight and Holland missed a $50 million health and pension payment due to Central States. The Teamsters gave notice of a possible strike beginning July 24th. Here's what matters about this kind of trucking. One less than truckload shipment can cross several terminals on several trucks, so a customer who fears a shutdown pulls their freight before it can be stranded mid-network. On July 23rd, after intervention by Teamsters leadership, Central States granted a 30-day extension, and the strike was averted. But Stevens analyst Jack Atkins estimated Yellow's freight volume had already fallen about 80%. Yellow ceased operations on July 30th, 7 days after the strike had been called off. 30,000 people lost their jobs. To understand why Yellow was this vulnerable, go back to 2009. The company neared bankruptcy in 2009 and 2010. It survived a $470 million debt for equity deal and 2 rounds of Teamster pay cuts. Yellow first deferred required pension contributions. More than $160 million remained deferred at year-end, secured by real estate, and carried as liabilities. Then most contracts temporarily ceased requiring contributions. Current pension contributions resumed in June 2011 at 25% of the July 2009 rate. Those measures kept Yellow alive. They did not fix its underlying problems. Then, in July 2020, the biggest postponement of all, The Treasury lent Yellow $700 million, pandemic relief, drawn from a special pot reserved for businesses, quote, critical to maintaining national security, a less-than-truckload freight carrier. Yellow received about 95% of all the money Treasury ultimately disbursed through that national security business program. In exchange, the United States government took a 29.6% stake in the company, nearly a third of Yellow, owned by the taxpayer. It was an enormous lifeline, but notice what it did and didn't touch. It added $700 million of debt. It did not move a single terminal. A Congressional Oversight Commission criticized the loan and the Defense Department's certification. Yellow's representatives had supplied a claim that it handled 68% of defense's less-than-truckload freight. Military Transport Command could not verify it, and the commission estimated 20 to 40%. A House subcommittee later said career defense officials had recommended against certification. The loan bought liquidity and equipment, not the network integration Yellow still needed. On February 9, 2023, Yellow filed its annual report. Buried in the risk factors, the boilerplate nobody reads, is a sentence that reads very differently in hindsight. If its relationship with its unions deteriorated, Yellow warned, the result could be, quote, general uncertainty by our customers, end quote, which could, quote, result in a loss of customers, end quote. Not a strike. Uncertainty. Yellow described a mechanism that would soon contribute to its collapse customers, leaving out of uncertainty in a mandatory filing to the federal government, 171 days before it happened. That report also described One Yellow, merge the operating companies, and consolidate terminals. Phase 1, about a fifth of the network, finished with union approval in 2022. Yellow submitted Phase 2 through the required process, and later alleged that the union halted it after revisions. Its June complaint sought more than $137 million in alleged lost adjusted EBITDA and at least $1.5 billion in alleged lost enterprise value. The Teamsters give the opposite account. Decades of debt and management failures, not the union, left Yellow insolvent. Workers had already accepted repeated wage and benefit concessions, and the Teamsters say One Yellow sought further concessions. They deny breaching the agreement or trying to destroy the company. In November 2025, the 10th Circuit reversed the denial of leave to amend and sent the case back. That was a pleading stage ruling, not a finding of breach or causation. A second amended complaint and the defendant's answers are on file, and discovery is underway. No court has ruled on the merits. 1 week later, on August 6, 2023, Yellow filed for Chapter 11 in Delaware, and then the estate started selling the ground. At the late November auction, winning bids for 128 owned properties and 2 leasehold interests totaled about $1.883 billion. The court approved the initial sales in December. The buyers included X, P.O., Estes, Saya, and Knight Swift. Yellow's property and equipment had cost $3.109 billion. Depreciation reduced the balance sheet figure by $1.94 billion, leaving $1.169 billion in net book value. The largest category was revenue equipment, mainly tractors, trailers, and containers, not land or structures. And land is the key exception. Structures depreciate. Land generally stays at historical cost, unless it is impaired or sold. The auction later produced nearly $1.9 billion from 128 owned properties and 2 leaseholds. Book value was never an appraisal, which brings us to the strangest receipt in the whole story. On February 5, 2024, out of that pile of dirt, Yellow repaid the United States Treasury in full $700 million in principal, plus more than $151 million in interest. The bailout came back. Every dollar. So what killed Yellow? Not one thing. Acquisitions, debt, and incomplete integration made it fragile. Article 8 required joint approval before covered terminal changes could take effect, limiting management's flexibility when the crisis arrived. The lawsuit asks whether the Teamsters breached that agreement. Yellow says yes. The Teamsters say no. No court has answered. The estate repaid Treasury. 30,000 jobs did not come back. If you got something out of this one, Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe. There's a new case file like this every week.